The sky of planet Neora was a deep blue shade that glowed softly under the twin suns. The ground was covered in silver grass that bent like waves when the wind passed over it. Birds with crystal wings flew in slow circles, and strange trees with glowing veins stood tall in silence. It was a peaceful world, far away from the noise of human colonies. Captain Ron was walking through the soft field, his boots leaving marks in the shining dust. He had landed his small ship here 2 days ago. He was part of the exploration team sent by the Earth Alliance to study unknown planets. He was alone this time because his team's main ship had gone ahead to another system. His task was to collect samples and test if life here could be friendly. He loved quiet planets. They reminded him of Earth before the wars. The wars had taken away much from him, his friends, his home, and even his family. The thought of his little daughter always made his chest heavy. She was 5 when he last saw her. He could still remember her voice calling him Dad before his ship left for duty. Ron checked his scanner again. It was showing life signals nearby, but they were small and weak. He thought they might be animals. Still, he walked carefully. The grass rustled softly under his steps. He reached a small valley surrounded by tall crystal rocks. In the middle of the valley was a pond with clear water that reflected the suns. He saw movement near the water. Something small was hiding behind a rock. He raised his scanner again and slowly walked closer. His heart started beating faster. The reading was strange. It was not animal, not machine. It was something in between. When he reached the rock, he looked behind it and stopped breathing for a second. There was a little girl sitting on the ground. Her skin was light blue and had faint silver lines that glowed under the sun. Her eyes were wide and golden. Her hair looked like soft threads of light. She was wearing a simple piece of cloth and her small hands were shaking. She looked scared and weak. Ron took a step back in shock. The girl looked almost human, but not completely. He had seen many alien races before, but none looked like this. He lowered his scanner and spoke softly. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The girl didn't move. She kept looking at him with her bright eyes. Her lips opened slightly, but no sound came out. She tried again, but still nothing. It was clear she couldn't speak. Ron slowly placed his scanner on the ground and knelt down. He took out a small water pack from his bag and placed it near her. "You must be thirsty," he said. The girl looked at the pack, then at him. After a moment, she reached out and touched it. The moment her fingers touched the plastic, the pack glowed for a second. She seemed surprised. Then she brought it close and drank carefully. Ron smiled. "Good girl. It's safe." He didn't know what species she was, but she looked too young to be dangerous. She looked like she had been alone for many days. Her clothes were torn and her hair was messy. There were small cuts on her hands. He pointed at himself and said, "Ron." Then he pointed at her, waiting for a name. The girl looked confused. She tried to speak again, but her throat made no sound. She touched her chest and lowered her head as if ashamed. Ron understood. She couldn't talk. "It's okay," he said gently. "You don't have to speak." He stood up and looked around. The valley was calm, but his scanner was showing no sign of any other life form nearby. He wondered if she was alone on this planet. The thought of that made him feel uneasy. No child should be alone like this. He offered his hand. "Come with me. My ship is not far. It's safe there." She looked at his hand for a long time. Her eyes showed fear, but also curiosity. Finally, she placed her small hand in his. Her skin felt warm and soft. Ron helped her stand up. She was light and looked fragile, but she walked beside him quietly. He guided her through the silver fields toward his ship. The wind blew softly and the twin suns started to set behind the mountains, painting the sky with orange and pink light. When they reached the ship, the girl stopped and looked at it with wide eyes. The ship was a small exploration craft named Aurora 1. Its metal body shone under the sunlight. Ron pressed a button on his wrist device and the ship's ramp opened with a low sound. "It's okay. Come inside," he said. She hesitated for a moment, then followed him. The air inside was warm and smelled clean. Ron closed the ramp and activated the inner lights. The girl looked around curiously, touching the smooth walls and blinking at the screens that glowed softly. He showed her a seat near the main control panel. "You can sit here." She sat down quietly. Her golden eyes followed his every move. Ron started preparing a meal pack. He made some warm food and placed it in front of her. She stared at it, not sure what it was. He took a small bite to show it was safe. She copied him and took a small bite. Her eyes widened. Then she began eating faster, clearly hungry. Ron smiled again. Slow down. There's more if you want. After she finished, she leaned back in the chair and looked tired. Her eyelids started to close. Ron covered her with a thin blanket and turned down the lights. For a moment, he stood there watching her sleep. Her face looked peaceful, like a normal child's face. But he knew there was something special about her. He had seen many alien species, but never one that looked so human. He sat in the pilot seat and started checking the records from his scanner. The readings from the valley showed strange energy patterns. It looked like the girl was connected to the planet somehow. The silver lines on her skin had pulsed when she drank water, matching the planet's natural frequency. That was not normal. Ron leaned back and rubbed his forehead. "What are you, little one?" he whispered. The girl moved slightly in her sleep and murmured softly. Ron froze. It was the first sound she had made. It was not clear, just a whisper, but it sounded like a word. He listened closely, but she fell silent again. He checked the time. It was already late. He decided to rest for a few hours. The night outside was calm, the stars shining bright above the planet. Ron dreamed of his daughter again. He saw her running in a green field, laughing and calling him Dad. He reached out to her, but she faded like mist. He woke up with a heavy heart. When he looked at the girl, she was awake and staring at him. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. She didn't look scared anymore. She looked calm, almost trusting. He smiled softly. "Good morning. How are you feeling?" She tilted her head, then pointed at herself. Her lips moved, but no sound came. Then she looked at him for a long time. Ron thought she was trying to say something. He waited patiently. Her mouth opened again. Her throat trembled. Then very slowly she spoke a single word. It was quiet, soft and trembling, but he heard it clearly. "Dad." Ron froze. His breath caught in his chest. He looked at her, unable to move or speak. The girl stared back at him with tears forming in her golden eyes. He didn't understand how she could know that word, but it hit him deep inside. It felt like the universe itself had stopped for a second. He took a deep breath and knelt beside her. "What did you say?" She looked down and whispered again, this time a little clearer. "Dad!" Ron's heart pounded in his chest. He didn't know if it was a coincidence or something more. But in that moment, as the little alien girl reached out and touched his hand, he felt something awaken inside him, something he had buried for years. He placed his hand gently over hers. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm here." The ship hummed quietly around them as the twin suns rose again outside, painting the world in golden light. Ron didn't know who she really was or why she called him that word. But he knew one thing. He could not leave her behind. And so began the story of a human and an alien child, bound by a word that carried more meaning than either of them could understand. The morning light filled the ship with a warm glow as the little alien girl sat quietly near the control panel. She was holding a small round crystal she had found on the floor, rolling it in her hands with wonder. Captain Ron watched her silently while sipping a cup of protein drink. He still could not stop thinking about the word she had spoken the night before. The word Dad echoed in his mind again and again. He told himself it was only a sound she had picked up somehow, maybe from his mind or his memories, but deep down, he felt it was more than that. There was something strange about this child, something that connected her to him in ways he could not explain. He looked at her. She seemed calmer now, her golden eyes bright as she examined every part of the ship. The small silver lines on her skin glowed softly, matching the gentle hum of the ship's systems. Ron had checked the energy readings again in the morning, and they showed a strange result. The ship's core energy had become more stable when she came inside. "That was impossible. Who are you really?" he whispered to himself. The girl looked at him as if she heard the question even though he had spoken softly. She tilted her head and smiled a little. Ron smiled back. "All right, little one. Let's see if we can learn more about you." He activated the ship's medical scanner and motioned her to sit on the examination chair. She obeyed without fear. The scanner beam passed over her body, and lines of data appeared on the screen. Ron frowned as he read them. Her body structure was close to human, but her blood carried energy particles that no human had. Her cells glowed faintly under the scan. They were producing something similar to bioelectric light. The computer beeped. Unknown life form detected. Partial human DNA pattern recognized. Ron froze. Partial human? He repeated softly. He looked at the screen again to make sure it was correct. The scanner was clear. Her genetic code shared similarities with human DNA almost 50%. He turned to look at her. She was watching him, her eyes full of innocence. She did not seem to understand what was happening. Ron took a deep breath. How can this be? He thought about the old rumors he had heard from explorers. Some spoke about lost research missions, secret experiments, and hybrid life projects from the early days of space colonization. He had never believed those stories, but now he was not so sure. He gently placed his hand on her shoulder. I need to find out where you came from. She looked at his face and smiled again. She reached up and touched the side of his neck where his communication badge was. The badge flashed once and made a small sound. Then the ship's main screen came alive with new signals. Ron jumped to his feet in surprise. What did you do? The screen displayed a cluster of lights in deep space, forming a pattern like a star map. The coordinates were far beyond his assigned region. He zoomed in on the signal and found a small mark at the center, a symbol that looked like a spiral with wings. He did not recognize it. The girl stood up and walked closer to the screen. She raised her hand and her skin's silver lines began to shine brighter. The ship responded to her presence. The engines hummed softly and the lights dimmed as if waiting for a command. Ron stared in shock. You are controlling the ship? The girl turned to him and blinked, not fully understanding his words. Then she pointed at the map and touched her chest. You came from there? Ron asked. She nodded slowly. He rubbed his chin. The place was far, maybe several systems away. He could not travel that distance without authorization, but something inside him told him he had to. The girl was alone and afraid, and now he had a clue about her home. He looked at her again. She seemed calm, trusting him completely. He remembered the way she had called him Dad. That one word had changed something in him. He had been wandering from planet to planet for years, doing his duty but feeling empty. Now, for the first time, he felt he had a reason to go on. He sighed. All right, little one. We'll find where you came from, I promise. She smiled again and sat down beside him as he set the new coordinates. The ship lifted off smoothly, leaving the silver valley behind. The twin suns grew smaller as they entered the upper atmosphere. Clouds of blue mist surrounded them as they broke through and entered the dark space above. Ron activated the hyperdrive. Hold on tight. The ship glowed with a soft light and shot forward into the star lanes. The stars stretched into lines, and then everything became a sea of color. During the long journey, Ron tried to teach her a few basic words. He showed her pictures of objects and said their names slowly. She could not repeat them easily, but she tried. Sometimes she laughed softly when he made funny faces. It reminded him of teaching his real daughter long ago. He decided to give her a name. Since you can't tell me your name, I'll give you one. How about Mira? It means wonder. The girl blinked and smiled, then touched her chest. Mira, she whispered slowly. Ron's heart lifted. Good, that's your name. They traveled for several hours through space. Everything seemed peaceful until the ship's alarm suddenly began to beep. Ron checked the radar. 3 unknown vessels were approaching fast. They were large and shaped like metal claws. Pirates, he muttered. He quickly took control of the ship. The pirate vessel sent a message. Unknown ship, lower your shields and surrender your cargo. Ron ignored the message and activated the defensive system. He turned to Mira. Stay here and hold on. She nodded, fear flashing in her eyes. The pirates opened fire. Bright plasma shots raced toward the ship. Ron dodged the first wave and returned fire. His small ship shook as explosions echoed around them. He was a skilled pilot, but 3 against 1 was hard. One blast hit the rear engine. The ship spun sharply. Ron struggled to regain control. Come on, hold together, he whispered. Suddenly, the ship's systems flashed with strange symbols. Ron looked down. Mira's hands were glowing again. She was touching the control panel. Her eyes turned bright gold. The damaged lights around the cabin began to flicker back to life. Mira, what are you doing? Ron shouted. She didn't answer. She closed her eyes and the ship suddenly surged forward with incredible speed. A wave of energy burst from the hull, forming a bright shield that blocked the next pirate attack. The pirates were thrown back by the force. Ron could hardly believe what he saw. The energy field was not from the ship. It was coming from Mira. Her power was merging with the ship's systems. He used the moment to escape. The ship jumped into hyperdrive again, leaving the pirates far behind. When everything became calm, Mira opened her eyes and looked tired. Ron rushed to her and caught her before she could fall. She was breathing fast, her skin dimming as if her energy was fading. He carried her to the medical bed and placed her there. "You saved us," he said softly. "Thank you." She looked at him weakly and smiled. "Safe," she whispered. "Yes, we're safe now," he said. He stayed by her side until she fell asleep. Then he went back to the control panel and checked the data. The system showed an unknown energy source had fused temporarily with the ship's power core. That energy was now stable, like it was alive. He looked back at Mira. "You are more than I thought, little one." For the next few hours, the ship continued toward the coordinates from the star map. Ron repaired what he could and checked on Mira often. She slept peacefully, her skin glowing faintly. Finally, the ship approached a new region of space. The stars here were different, shining brighter. At the center of the map's path was a small nebula that looked like a spiral of golden light. As they drew closer, the scanner picked up faint signals, structures hidden inside the nebula. Ron narrowed his eyes. That must be it. Mira's home. He adjusted the course and prepared to enter the nebula. But just as the ship reached the outer edge, a massive energy wave hit them. The ship shook violently. Warning lights flashed everywhere. Ron grabbed the controls. What now? Through the front window, he saw something moving inside the nebula. A large object, half mechanical and half alive, was blocking the way. It looked like a ship, but shaped like a living creature with wings made of light. Mira woke up suddenly. She sat up and stared at the screen. Her eyes widened in fear. She whispered one word, almost too quiet to hear. "Guardian." The strange ship turned slowly toward them, its glowing eyes shining like suns. Ron's heart pounded. "Guardian of what?" Mira looked at him, her face pale. She pointed toward the nebula. Home, Ron understood. Whoever these beings were, they were protecting the place she came from. But they didn't know he was not a threat. He tightened his grip on the controls. "Hold on, Mira, we're not turning back." The strange guardian ship released a burst of golden energy, spreading across the space around them. The Aurora One trembled under the force. Ron activated every defense system he had. The journey to the truth about the little alien girl was only beginning, and now the stars themselves seemed to stand in their way. The ship Aurora One was caught in a storm of golden energy. Waves of light swirled around the hull, shaking every part of the vessel. Captain Ron held the control sticks tightly, trying to keep the ship steady. His teeth clenched as warning lights flashed across the screen. Power levels dropping. "Shields unstable," said the computer. Ron turned toward Mira, who was gripping the edge of her seat. Her golden eyes were wide with fear as the guardian ship loomed before them. It was massive, shaped like a creature from an ancient legend. Its wings stretched out across space, glowing with patterns of light. Every move it made sent another wave of energy toward them. Ron shouted above the noise. "Mira, you said this thing is a guardian. Can you tell it we are not enemies?" Mira looked at him helplessly. She shook her head, then pointed at her throat. Her voice was too weak. She could only speak a few words, and this situation needed more than that. Ron cursed under his breath, then took a deep breath to calm himself. He knew they had little time before the ship was torn apart. He needed to act fast. "Mira, listen. You connected with the ship before. You used your energy to save us. Can you try again? Maybe you can show that thing we are not here to fight." She hesitated, looking afraid. The last time she used her power, she had nearly fainted. But when she saw the desperate look in his eyes, she nodded slowly. Ron moved closer and placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "I believe in you. Just focus on peace. No fighting, only peace." She closed her eyes. The silver lines on her skin began to glow. The ship's control panels flickered as her energy spread through the system. The hum of the engines changed tone, softer now, almost like a heartbeat. Outside, the guardian ship paused. Its wings stopped moving. The golden storm slowed down as if it was listening. Mira's glow grew brighter. Ron could feel warmth spreading through the ship. The computer sensors went silent, no longer reading any threat. The golden light outside began to swirl gently around the ship instead of attacking it. Ron watched the screen in wonder. "It's working." Then a voice echoed inside the cabin, soft but powerful. It was not coming from the speakers. It came from everywhere at once, deep and calm. Who enters the heart of the nebula without the mark of the stars? Ron froze. The voice was speaking in perfect English, yet it felt ancient. He stood up and replied, I am Captain Ron of the Earth Alliance. I come in peace. The girl with me was found alone on a distant planet. I believe this is her home. The golden light outside pulsed once as if the Guardian was thinking. Then the voice spoke again. The child carries the seed of light, the essence of our kind. Yet she is not one of us. Her energy is mixed. Her path was not meant to return. Ron frowned. What do you mean, not meant to return? She's a child. She deserves to go home. The Guardian's eyes glowed brighter. Her presence is dangerous. She carries the power that can awaken the heart of the nebula. Only the chosen can control it. Leave her here, human, and depart while you still can. Ron's chest tightened. I will not leave her. The golden light flared again. The ship shook slightly, but not as hard as before. The Guardian seemed almost surprised by his defiance. Mira opened her eyes and looked at him. She could not understand the words of the Guardian fully, but she knew something was wrong. She stood up and took his hand. The silver light around her grew stronger. Ron felt a strange pull in his mind. For a brief second, images flashed before his eyes. He saw a large city made of crystal towers, glowing under a sky full of stars. He saw people like Mira walking among them, smiling. Then he saw fire and explosions, the city breaking apart. The vision faded, leaving him breathless. Mira looked at him, tears forming in her eyes. She had seen it too. Ron realized the truth. Your people are gone, aren't they? She nodded slowly. The Guardian spoke again, its tone lower now. The child is the last of the Lumari. Her kind fell long ago. She was sent away to survive, hidden on distant worlds. You found her because fate willed it, but the power she holds cannot be allowed to awaken. Ron's mind raced. If her people are gone, then she has no home left. I will protect her. The Guardian's voice grew softer. You are only human. You cannot protect what you do not understand. Ron straightened. Maybe not, but I will try. For a long moment, the space around them was silent. The Guardian did not attack again. Finally, the golden light dimmed. Very well, human. If you wish to learn, you must pass through the heart of the nebula. But know this. What lies ahead will test your will. The truth you seek carries both light and sorrow. The giant ship slowly moved aside, opening a path into the glowing spiral of the nebula. Ron exhaled in relief. He looked at Mira and smiled. We did it. Hold on tight. We're going in. The Aurora 1 flew forward, entering the spiral of golden clouds. The light wrapped around them like fire and water mixed together. The ship trembled but stayed strong. Inside the nebula, everything looked like a dream. Floating pieces of crystal drifted among glowing clouds. Streams of light moved through space like living rivers. Mira pressed her hands against the window, staring in wonder. Her skin glowed brighter, matching the colors outside. Ron looked at her and said softly, Maybe this place remembers you. The deeper they went, the stronger the light became. Strange shapes appeared in the distance, ruins of massive structures, maybe the remains of a lost civilization. Towers of silver metal floated weightlessly, half broken yet still shining. Ron guided the ship toward one of the larger structures. It looked like a temple or a station. Symbols like the spiral wings were carved into its surface. The ship landed gently on a flat platform. Ron powered down the engines and stood up. Stay close, Mira. The airlock opened and they stepped out into the strange light. The platform felt solid, though it shimmered like glass. The air was breathable, filled with a faint hum as if the whole place was alive. Mira walked slowly, her eyes wide. She touched the ground and small ripples of light spread from her fingers. Ron followed, his scanner recording everything. They entered the main hall of the structure. Inside, the walls glowed with lines that looked like the patterns on Mira's skin. At the center of the hall was a large crystal sphere floating above a pedestal. Inside the sphere, golden light moved like liquid. Mira walked straight toward it as if something was calling her. Ron reached out. Wait, Mira. She turned to him, her face calm. Home, she whispered. He hesitated, then nodded. All right. I'm here. Mira placed her hands on the crystal sphere. Instantly, the whole room lit up. The patterns on the walls came alive, shining like stars. The air filled with a soft humming sound. Ron shielded his eyes from the brightness. When the light dimmed, he saw Mira standing in front of the sphere, her body surrounded by a golden aura. Her eyes were closed. Then a holographic figure appeared above the sphere. It was a tall being with the same glowing lines as Mira, but older and regal. The figure spoke in a deep, kind voice. To the one who carries the spark of our people, welcome home. I am the Keeper of Light, guardian of the last memory of the Lumari. Ron watched in silence. The figure continued. Long ago, our world was destroyed by those who feared our power. We sent one child across the stars hidden in a sleep crystal, hoping she would survive. You, child of the stars, are that one? Mira opened her eyes slowly. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She whispered softly, Mother. The figure smiled. Yes, my child. I am the echo of your mother's light. You were meant to awaken when peace returned to the stars, but fate brought you to a human who still carries a pure heart. Ron felt his chest tighten again. He stepped closer. She has been through so much. Please tell me what she needs. The Keeper looked at him. Her energy is unstable. If it remains uncontrolled, it could destroy her and all around her. She must complete the binding. It will merge her light with the balance of the universe. But to do that, she will need a guide. Ron frowned. What kind of guide? The Keeper's gaze softened. The one she called Father. Ron stared at her in shock.
Me? Yes, the Keeper said.
Your spirit is strong. Her bond with you is what kept her alive. You must help her channel her power. Together you will either restore balance or bring destruction. The choice will rest on your heart. Before he could answer, the light around them began to fade. The image of the Keeper started to dissolve. Wait, Ron said. How do I help her? Follow the path of light, the Keeper whispered. Trust in her as she trusts in you. Then the figure vanished completely. Mira turned to Ron, her eyes glowing softly. Dad, she said quietly. He walked to her and knelt down. I'm here, Mira, always. The sphere above the pedestal dimmed and sank into silence. Outside, the nebula's light pulsed once as if acknowledging their bond. Ron knew their journey was far from over. The truth about Mira's power was only beginning to unfold. Somewhere deep inside the nebula, the heart of her people still waited to be awakened. And now it was up to a single human and a little alien girl to decide the fate of a forgotten world. The hall was silent after the Keeper's image vanished. The golden lights on the walls dimmed, leaving only a soft glow. Ron and Mira stood together near the crystal sphere that had now turned clear and still. The air felt warm and heavy with unseen energy. Ron looked around, trying to understand what had just happened. His heart was still racing from the words he had heard. The Keeper had told him that Mira's energy was powerful but unstable. If not controlled, it could destroy everything. And now it was his duty to guide her. He looked at the little girl beside him. She was staring at the ground, her face calm but her eyes filled with deep sadness. The word mother still echoed in his mind. He knelt down and gently touched her shoulder. Are you all right, Mira? She looked up and gave a small nod. Then she reached out and took his hand. Her touch was warm and full of light. Ron smiled softly. We'll figure this out, together. Mira's lips curved into a faint smile and she whispered, Together. Ron stood up and looked around the hall once more. There had to be more clues about the binding that the Keeper had mentioned. He walked toward the back of the room and saw a wide doorway leading into a long corridor. The walls glowed faintly, guiding their way. As they walked through the corridor, the air began to change. It was filled with a strange hum that made the ground vibrate slightly. The walls showed carvings that looked like stars and waves of energy. In the center of each carving, Ron saw the same spiral wing symbol. After walking for a while, they reached another chamber. It was much larger, with a high ceiling and pillars that rose like trees of light. In the middle of the chamber floated a large crystal heart, glowing with golden fire inside. Around it were 6 smaller crystals, each shining a different color. Ron stopped and stared. This must be the heart of light the Keeper spoke of. The hum grew louder as they stepped closer. Mira's silver lines began to shine again. The crystals responded, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Ron felt a gentle force pulling him forward. He reached out his hand and touched one of the smaller crystals. Instantly, a wave of warmth spread through him. His vision blurred for a moment, and he saw flashes of the past again. He saw the Lumari people living in peace, using their energy to heal and build. Then he saw chaos, ships burning and enemies destroying their world. He saw a mother placing her child in a crystal pod, whispering words of love before sending her away into the stars. When the vision ended, Ron stepped back. breathing heavily. He looked at Mira and realized that the child from the vision was her. He whispered, "You were the last hope of your people." Mira looked at him, not fully understanding his words, but she seemed to sense his emotions. She walked to the large crystal heart and placed her small hands on it. The heart began to glow brighter. A deep voice echoed in the chamber. "The time of awakening has come. The heart of light can only be restored through balance, Umar, the unity of the Lumari and the strength of humankind." Ron looked around, startled. "Who said that?" The voice continued. "To guide her, you must share your life force. Only then can her power be balanced," Ron frowned. "Share my life force? How?" As if answering, a beam of light shot out from the crystal heart and surrounded him. The warmth spread through his body, and he felt his energy connecting with Mira's. She gasped as the silver lines on her skin began to glow brighter, forming patterns that matched the ones on the crystal. "Mira," he said softly, "it's all right. I'm with you." She reached out her hand and he took it. The moment their hands touched, the entire room filled with blinding light. The energy between them flowed like a river, linking their hearts and minds. Ron felt memories that were not his own. The songs of the Lumari, the beauty of their cities, the sadness of their fall. At the same time, Mira saw flashes of his past. Earth, his daughter, the wars, and the loneliness he carried. Their minds became one for a brief moment. In that space there was no fear, no barrier, only a deep connection. When the light faded, they were still holding hands. The heart of light had changed. It was now shining with both golden and blue light swirling together in perfect balance. Ron felt weak but calm. He could feel Mira's energy inside him, not painful but warm and alive. Then the voice spoke again. "The binding is complete. The child's power is now linked to the strength of the human heart. Together you are the bridge between two lost worlds." Mira looked up at Ron and smiled. Her voice was clearer now. "Dad," she said softly. Ron smiled back, tears filling his eyes. "I'm here, Mira." The moment of peace did not last long. The ship's communicator suddenly came to life with a loud beep. Ron turned to the screen attached to his wrist and saw a warning signal. 3 ships were entering the nebula. He activated the display and his face hardened. The signals belonged to the same pirate ships that had attacked them before. "They found us," he muttered. The pirates had followed the energy trail from the heart of light. They were greedy for power and would destroy anything to get it. Ron quickly lifted Mira in his arms and ran back toward the ship. The ground trembled as explosions echoed through the nebula. Bright flashes of light filled the air as the pirates fired plasma beams into the ancient ruins. They reached the Aurora 1, and Ron placed Mira in her seat. "Hold on tight. We're getting out of here." He powered up the engines and the ship rose into the air. Through the window he could see the pirates closing in. Their ships were larger and heavily armed. One of them sent a message. "Hand over the girl and the energy source, human." "You cannot escape." Ron ignored the threat. He activated the shields and steered the ship toward the outer layer of the nebula. The pirates fired again, shaking the Aurora 1. Sparks flew from the panels. The ship's alarm screamed. Ron shouted, "Come on, stay together." Mira held onto the armrest, her eyes glowing again. The energy inside her began to flow through the ship just as it had before. The hull shone with a soft blue light. Ron looked at her. "Mira, not too much. You'll hurt yourself," but she shook her head. Her voice was calm. "Safe." She raised her hands toward the screen and the ship's energy field expanded. The next blast from the pirates bounced off harmlessly. Then Mira closed her eyes and focused. Outside, the space around them began to twist. The golden light from the heart of light still surrounded the nebula, and now it responded to her call. A wave of pure energy spread outward, forming a barrier around the ancient ruins. The pirate ships hit the barrier and stopped as if frozen. Ron stared in amazement. "She's protecting the nebula." The barrier began to push outward, forcing the pirates away. Their ships shook violently, unable to resist the pressure. Finally, one by one, they turned and fled into the darkness of space. When it was over, Mira's glow faded. She fell back into her seat, exhausted. Ron rushed to her side and checked her pulse. She was breathing but weak, he whispered. "You did it. You saved us again?" Her eyes opened slightly and she smiled. "Home safe." Ron nodded, feeling a wave of pride and emotion. "Yes, home safe." He guided the ship back to the platform near the temple. The barrier around the nebula remained strong, shining like a protective wall of light. As they landed, the golden energy of the Heart of Light pulsed once more. The keeper's voice echoed faintly through the air. The child and the human have restored balance. The heart is safe once more. The Lumari shall live on in the bond between light and flesh. Ron looked at Mira, who was now resting peacefully. He whispered, "You're not alone anymore, Mira. You'll never be." The light from the heart slowly dimmed as if going to sleep. The nebula became quiet again, calm and full of peace. Ron leaned back in his chair, looking out at the stars beyond the golden mist. For the first time in years, he felt complete. He had come to explore, but he had found something far greater: hope, purpose, and a new kind of family. Mira stirred in her sleep and murmured softly, "Dad." He smiled. "Rest, Mira. We have a long journey ahead." Outside the ship, the stars shimmered quietly as if watching over them. Deep within the nebula, the Heart of Light continued to glow gently, guarding the last memory of a lost race. But unknown to both of them, far beyond the edge of the nebula, a shadow was watching. Hidden ships with dark markings floated silently, their sensors fixed on the glowing barrier. A mechanical voice spoke from within the largest ship. "The energy signature has been confirmed. The Child of Light has awakened. Prepare the fleet." The stars flickered, and the darkness spread quietly across space. Ron and Mira were unaware that their greatest challenge was still waiting, a challenge that would decide not only their fate, but the fate of every world touched by the light. The Aurora One hovered quietly above the glowing platform of the ancient Lumari temple. Mira rested in her seat, her small hands folded over her chest. Her silver lines pulsed softly, reflecting the calm light of the Heart of Light. Captain Ron kept a careful watch on the scanners, expecting danger because he knew the Shadow Fleet was still out there. He leaned over her gently. "Mira, can you stand?" She nodded weakly. With his support, she rose to her feet. Her golden eyes scanned the temple halls. She seemed drawn toward the crystal heart in the center, still glowing faintly. Ron followed her, holding her hand. "We need to understand your power fully. Only then will you be safe." Mira approached the sphere and placed her hands on it again. Immediately, the glow intensified. The smaller crystals around it pulsed in perfect rhythm with her heartbeat. The entire hall began to hum, resonating with energy that vibrated through the floor. Ron watched, fascinated. He had never seen anything like this. Mira's energy was connected to everything here, alive and intelligent. He realized that her power was not just a weapon. It was a form of life itself. "Mira, I'm here," he said softly. She looked at him and whispered, "Dad." The simplicity of the word, the trust in her voice, filled him with courage. He held her hands tightly, feeling her energy merge with his own. The warmth of the connection flowed through him. Suddenly, the sensors on the ship went wild. Multiple large objects were approaching fast. Ron ran back to the controls. "The Shadow Fleet is here," he shouted. Mira's eyes widened, but she did not panic. Instead, she focused on the Heart of Light. A soft golden aura began to form around her body, extending outward in waves. The energy touched the walls, the pillars, and even the floor, forming a protective dome. Ron's mouth opened in surprise. "You're creating a shield." "Yes," Mira whispered. Her voice was steady now. "Safe." The first ships of the Shadow Fleet entered the nebula, their dark hulls reflecting the faint glow of the crystals. They fired plasma cannons at the temple, trying to break through the barrier. Each shot collided with the dome and disintegrated harmlessly. Ron worked furiously at the controls, piloting the Aurora One around the perimeter. He fired countermeasures to slow the approaching ships, but it was clear that Mira's shield was doing most of the work. As they moved, Mira's power pulsed stronger. She focused on each attack, directing the waves of light toward the invaders. The Shadow Fleet could not break through. One by one, the ships were pushed back by her force. Then a deep voice echoed from one of the larger ships. "Child of Light, surrender your power. You cannot escape our control." Ron frowned. "Mira, they're demanding you give them your power." "Don't listen. Stay with me." Mira's small hands glowed brighter. She looked at him and whispered, "Dad, together." Ron nodded firmly. "Together." He took a deep breath and placed his hand over hers. Their energies merged, and the Heart of Light responded instantly. The crystals pulsed with golden and blue light, spreading outward in a wave that shook the nebula. The shadow fleet was caught in the wave. Their ships trembled and were lifted off their course by the sheer force. The hulls creaked and the larger vessels began to retreat. The smaller ships had no choice but to follow. Ron felt Mira's energy flowing through him. It was not overwhelming this time. It was gentle and balanced. He realized that her power was amplified by his own courage and care. Together, they were stronger than any enemy. When the light faded, the shadow fleet was gone, retreating into the darkness of space. The temple and the heart of light were unharmed. The nebula itself seemed to settle, the glow softening into a calm rhythm. Mira collapsed into Ron's arms, exhausted. He held her close, whispering softly, "It's over, Mira. We did it." She looked up at him with tired eyes and whispered again, "Safe." Ron smiled, tears forming in his eyes. "Yes, we're safe. You did it, Mira. You saved everything." The heart of light pulsed once more. Then, as if recognizing their courage and unity, the crystal heart began to emit a soft melodic tone. The smaller crystals floated upward, forming a protective constellation above the temple. The entire nebula shone with calm, radiant energy. Ron knelt beside Mira. "You're more than just a survivor, Mira. You are a guardian, just like your people wanted you to be." She rested her head against his shoulder, tired but calm. "Dad," she whispered, the single word full of trust. Ron stroked her hair. "And I'll always be here. Always." The Aurora One floated gently above the platform, its lights reflecting the golden glow of the temple. Ron checked the scanners. The nebula was quiet. The shadow fleet had disappeared. There were no signals of any threat nearby. He sighed with relief. "It's really over, Mira." She looked up at him, her golden eyes glowing faintly. "Home?" "Yes, Mira," he said softly. "This is your home now. You are safe here." For the first time since he had found her on the distant silver fields of Neora, Ron felt a sense of peace. The child he had rescued was not only alive but thriving. Together they had restored the balance of the Lumari legacy and survived the darkness that sought to take it. Mira smiled faintly, and her energy glowed softly in rhythm with the heart of light. She walked toward the central crystal, touching it with her small hands. The heart responded, filling the room with warmth and calm. Ron followed her, watching as she gently placed her hands on the heart. A holographic image appeared, showing the lost Lumari cities alive and vibrant, glowing with life energy. Mira's mother appeared too, smiling gently. The figure did not speak, but her presence brought comfort. Ron realized then that Mira could feel the memory of her people. The child he had found alone on a distant planet was the last hope of an entire race, and together they had protected it. Mira looked back at Ron and whispered softly, "Dad." He knelt down and embraced her. "I'm here, Mira. I'll always be here." The heart of light pulsed one final time, glowing with golden and blue light, spreading across the nebula. The protective shield that Mira had formed now remained steady, guarding the temple and the memory of the Lumari forever. Ron knew that their journey was not over, but the hardest part had been won. The shadow fleet was gone, the heart of light was safe, and Mira was at peace. He had found a daughter again in the most unexpected way. Outside, the stars shone bright, and the nebula's light stretched across the void, a beacon of hope. Ron looked at Mira and smiled. "We have a lot to learn, little one, but we will do it together." Mira reached up and held his hand. Together. They stayed there for a long while, watching the golden glow of the heart of light and the calm beauty of the nebula. For Ron, this moment was more than a victory. It was a promise. No matter what came next, he would protect her, guide her, and be the father she had called him. The lost legacy of the Lumari was alive again through Mira, and humans and aliens were united by hope, courage, and love. The child who had been alone had finally found a home, and the human who had wandered the stars had finally found a reason to belong. As the nebula pulsed quietly around them, Ron whispered once more, "Welcome home, Mira." The little alien girl smiled and hugged him tightly. "Home," she said, and this time her voice carried a warmth that filled both of their hearts. Beyond the stars, the universe seemed to pause, acknowledging the bond that had been forged. A human and a Lumari child together had rewritten fate, and for the first time in many years, Captain Ron felt that hope, love, and courage were enough to face anything the universe could throw at them.